Welcome everyone to our last Lunch and Learn series webinar. I'm Nabil El-Ghouri, the Executive Director of CAMFT, and it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Kurt Whitholm, and our newest employee at CAMFT, Christy Kadarian. She is our Educational Outreach Liaison. Hi, Christy.
Hi, Nabil.
Why don't you launch the poll while we're waiting for people to log in?
Sure. So hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Christy Kadarian, as Nabil said, and I am the new Educational Outreach Liaison for CAMFT. I'm specifically really helping with pre-licensed members and potential members of CAMFT and really connecting with you. And we would love to get your feedback specifically right now about what professional development topics for pre-licensees you would be most interested in attending a training about. So if you could answer this poll with which topic you would most like to learn about: Business 101, how to make the most of your traineeship and associate experience, managing finances and loan repayment and forgiveness, or the road to licensure. We'll give you a second to answer that. Okay.
Okay, great. I see we're at 332 participants at the
Great. Okay, awesome. So it seems like we have some good responses. 32% Business 101, 27% how to make the most of your traineeship, 21% managing finances and loan repayment, and 20% the road to licensure. Well, good news for you all. We're probably doing trainings on all of these topics.
I think so. They're all popular. I think so.
Yeah, so I am so excited to join CAMFT in this way, and a little bit about my background, as I shared on our last webinar about navigating or about topics around pre-licensed issues for people that during this time. I shared a little bit about my background as a MFT. So I graduated from my program at USC in 2012 and then just finished my doctorate in educational and organizational psychology. And my first CAMFT meeting was a bit different than yours, if this is your first one, as I said last time, as it was in a room full of MFTs, and I didn't know much about the profession or what the different paths were, but I was really inspired when I went to my first CAMFT meeting to learn about all the different career paths, and my own personal career path as an MFT has taken me on roads of working within eating disorder treatment centers as a director of marketing, also to becoming a professional matchmaker for eHarmony and using my knowledge that I learned through my degree about relationships in that way. And additionally, a lot of my work, as many of you that are tuning in today, has been with children in school-based therapy settings. So I think that it's very obvious to say that our degree can be so useful in helping in so many broad areas. And I am so excited to join CAMFT specifically in creating some of this content and help and training with things that I would have wanted to know when I was pre-licensed, and really giving some of that information to you guys and sharing that. So if you are a CAMFT member, if you don't know much about CAMFT membership, I did want to tell you a little bit about what you receive with a CAMFT membership as a pre-licensed member. So we have a job board that has daily job postings for employment and internships, which is so helpful, especially now. Continued education such as this, and training hours that can count toward licensure. We have in-person, outside of this pandemic, obviously, workshops as well as online workshops. A legal team. So you have exclusive access to speak to CAMFT lawyers who can answer any legal or ethical questions or licensure related questions. Community, so we're the largest network of MFTs worldwide, over 32,000 members. And and within CAMFT, you have the opportunity to grow leadership skills and that community. I know so many of my leadership skills started in my CAMFT chapter. Shout out to San Gabriel Valley CAMFT. I was on the board and learned so many skills through that experience that I have today, and especially road to licensure support. So we provide test taking and self-care resources and regular communication regarding BBS activities and licensing mandates. So we would love for you to become a member of CAMFT and take advantage of all of those benefits. And whether you're a member or not a member, we offer this free PDF guide for everyone that attends or signs up, that goes through these topics that I listed in the poll. And we're also looking forward to connecting with you on our Facebook and Instagram pages that were just launched last week. So we have the links below for you to like those and interact with us there, as well as the link to join as a pre-licensed member. So if you're not yet, we would love to have you, and I'm really looking forward to connecting with you. So thanks for your time.
Great.
And
Thank you, Christy. Also, reminder, pre-licensees, you can talk to CAMFT attorneys about option 1 versus option 2. If you are at that point of your licensure, they can help you figure out what's the best path for you. Okay, so I want to thank Geico, CPH, and Simple Practice for co-sponsoring this Lunch and Learn session. And while this is not a CE event, you can visit the CAMFT On-Demand Library for workshops on clinical, legal, and ethical issues at www.camft.org/self-study. Please remember to use the Q&A feature. We've got 30 questions listed there, so that is great. So Kurt Widholm is our guest today. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's faculty or adjunct faculty at Pepperdine.
I'm adjunct faculty.
Adjunct faculty at Pepperdine, so he teaches courses at Pepperdine, and he's been a subject matter expert for the BBS. And he is the current chief financial officer for 2 more days. So we're talking 60 hours. And he also has, you might have heard him on his podcast, Modern Therapist, or his conference, Therapy Reimagined. So thank you, Kurt, for coming today.
Yes, definitely. Very glad to be here and share some of the experiences from working with kids and adolescents from not only my practice, but also from a lot of the other child therapists that I've been in contact with over the last couple of months, as we've all made the transition to trying to answer a lot of the questions that I'm seeing come up here in the Q&A.
Right.
And, for a lot of the older teenagers, it's fitting right into their FaceTime world of now just having that relationship with you. I imagine most of the topics that we're going to discuss today are working with a little bit younger kids, ones who might not be so tech savvy, and really getting into kind of how this all works and some of the considerations.
Let's dive in. Let's dive in. So we're going to ask 3 questions to start the conversation. Then we're going to dive into the Q&A.
Awesome.
So the first question is, what are some of the issues faced when working with kids and adolescents while you're doing telehealth?
So the biggest concerns usually come around privacy, and this is making sure that the kids have an opportunity to be able to speak with you, that they're not distracted by siblings or parents that might be sitting right outside the door, and really setting a lot of that structure around giving them the opportunity to be able to talk with you, much like if they were in your office, being able to be separate away from everybody. Right. And I've seen this as considerations from both ends, that especially with things that you're saying to your client, if they can be wearing something like headphones, that way the speaker, whatever device that they're on, isn't being broadcast to, through the door, the volume's up too loud, or even worse, when a device is connected to a Bluetooth speaker someplace else in the house that you don't know how things might be heard someplace else. So this is really making sure that kids have their own private space. I've even got one client that the parents have been so wonderful of setting him up in the back seat of their minivan out in their garage. So that way he knows that he's going to be able to have a private conversation, just like if he was coming to me sitting in my office. And this is especially a very strong consideration for kids who are LGBTQ plus, who may not be out to their parents, where there is a safety issue. Any kids who might be also facing things like abuse situations or surrounding divorce situations as well. So definitely wanting to make sure that that privacy is considered first.
I think there's a lot of therapy happening in cars, closets, bathrooms,
Yes.
any place with a door that you could close. Okay, so how do you consider if a child is appropriate for telehealth?
So some of the considerations is, are they actually benefiting out of the time that you are spending online with them? And this is something where that doesn't necessarily rule them out of therapy. And especially with kids, where so much around therapy is, doing that good Carl Winnicott device of following where the kids go, but it's also being super flexible with how we're trying to deliver things. This might range anything from having more parent involvement during the session time to make sure that kids stay engaged. If they're running all over the house, if there's self-injury involved where they're really just leaving the room and not coming back to you. These are some of the considerations that you might direct the families back towards being in a in-person situation if there's another provider in your area, or if that's a comfort that you have of seeing a client in your office right now. But really the biggest thing that we're looking for is that they're remaining engaged in getting some benefit out of the time that we have together.
Okay.
And that might range, because even with some of our younger clients, we may consider doing shorter sessions, because having a 5-year-old sit on a Zoom call for 45 minutes might not be the most effective use or expectation out of somebody at that developmental stage.
Or it might mean combined parent-child sessions.
Exactly, yes.
You gave me a little bit of PTSD by mentioning Winnicott, and I'm thinking about my licensure exam, so I have to calm myself down right now. Third question before we go to the Q&A, the live Q&A, are the roles that parents play any different in telehealth?
So I'm getting a lot more questions from parents in between sessions, and I didn't even realize how much just that 1 minute crossing paths in the waiting room back at my office actually meant to parents, as far as, is my kid actually benefiting out of this? Are they doing things? So you may end up having more time that you need to schedule check-ins with parents in between sessions every couple of weeks, just to keep them updated on progress. And especially for some of your clients that may not be as good at following through on some of their interventions or data tracking that you are talking about in sessions. And ideally, you're going to make that a part of the therapy sessions that you're already having, but having some good structured communication between parents and you, and parents and the kids around their treatment goals, is really one of the best things that you can do to benefit everybody in this situation.
Right. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the Q&As, and I'm going to go to the top question that I think everyone is wondering about. And forgive me if I mispronounce her name. I think it's Jailene Jaffe.
Jailene Jaffe.
Have you found any games or activities that can be played online with kids during telehealth sessions? This is to me, the ultimate question.
So there is a ton of resources out there, and many of them, again, if we're going to follow kids into things that they already know, a lot of kids are exposed somehow to platforms like Roblox, roblox.com. It's a free platform that does have some premium features, but it is accessible to anybody with an online connection, that you can end up creating an avatar. You do need to connect with friends to be able to follow them around in the game. So definitely make sure that you're taking some privacy precautions, as far as, not identifying or outing anybody there. But this is where you also want to make sure that the communications that you are having are within whatever HIPAA compliant platform that you do have. So a lot of times I'll be set up in my simple practice video conference, talking with them, seeing them, but we can switch over to another tab and be able to play Roblox. And as Nabil and I were talking before today, sometimes doing therapy with kids is kind of like doing magic, that you get them engaged in another area just to be able to get them talking. Another platform that a lot of people are able to use, and a lot of kids are already well versed in, is playing Minecraft. And there are servers that you can set up where it's entirely just you and the kid. So this way you're not running into other people who are coming into your workspace. I know for a lot of kids and therapists who have a Nintendo Switch, that Animal Crossing is a place where many people are doing therapy these days. And also in between sessions, it's a game that people are reporting a lot of anxiety reduction, and is a good resource in this. I do suggest going to letsplaytherapy.org. They've got walkthroughs on a lot of these games and ways for therapists to be able to bring some of these virtual games into sessions.
Letsplaytherapy.org. Letsplaytherapy.org. I think those are great tips. I'm terrified about setting up a server for Minecraft, but let's go to that website and get some more information.
It's a lot easier than we make it out to be. I have 7-year-olds who are able to do this. I'm pretty certain that once they can walk us through things.
I'm sure I have some 7-year-olds who can hack the NSA. So let's go to the next question. Manjeet Balanger says, how can we engage young kids who have difficulty sitting still through Zoom sessions? Question number 2 that everyone's been asking. So let's go.
And this is where you can do a number of things, and this partially depends on the device that your clients are accessing you on. If they're obviously fixed to a computer that's sitting on a desktop, that's one thing. But if they have a tablet or a phone that they're able to walk around their house, keeping them engaged and even getting them moving, if they can take you with them, you can have them show you around their house. You can have them also engage in some of the games where, even if I'm fixed someplace, and I know that this is one of the other questions that I'm seeing in here, is there's other games that we can play just even within our own situation. We play I Spy sometimes, and for a couple of my clients, you see my monkey back here, my monkey Bango, that makes its appearance in different parts of the room, and depending on the setup of the day, I might move to a different part of my home office here. And being able to have clients look for these kinds of little distractors, or I might move, close my camera down for a minute during session and move it to a busier part of the room. So that way they've got something that they're engaging in and continuing to look at the video. And this is also incorporating some other activities that, there's a number of sessions where I get a phone set down on a desk and I get a really good view of a client's ceiling, but knowing that they're engaged in something else, whether it's a drawing activity or a board game or something else like that, that as long as I know that they're engaged with the content of what we're talking about, part of this is just being really, really creative with that.
I mean, really, you're testing creativity as a therapist here. This is really the skill. This is the art of therapy we're talking about. Okay, so Jasmine Mia asks, I'd like to learn more about ways to interact with kid clients who aren't online or technical. So that may be younger, but it may also just be kids who just aren't interested in online stuff.
And so if they are even talking to you, this is again where they might be engaged someplace else, but any board game that a child has at home, you can play that board game with them, and it's a matter of getting them to move the pieces for you. So playing Sorry, they can push the button for you, and this also teaches great life skills as far as teamwork and about how to communicate what's happening and about what's the teamwork aspects of it. So arts and crafts is another really good idea. Being able to draw or play on a whiteboard and be able to, one of the activities that I like doing is giving them, all right, draw 3 circles somewhere on your marker board, and seeing what kinds of overall shapes that they end up coming with, and adding more and more shapes throughout the session, and just not having a directive of an outcome, but also something that gives them, where are you going with this? and keeping them in a low-tech environment while being engaged over a video session.
Right. They could be coloring a coloring book page, or maybe they could download a page, that you send them or something like that. Right.
And puppets work from both ends. At its most basic, you need a pair of socks, and some people, do have their play therapy puppets from home. That's another great way of communicating with kids in ways that's not just an adult talking to them online.
Okay. So another question from Tiana Malhiat. Do you have any suggestions or guidance for boundary setting with privacy and confidentiality on the other side of the screen with kids?
So if I'm understanding this question correctly, this is the role of some of those conversations with parents, really making sure that the other people in the household are respecting therapy time, and that therapy time is respected by the kids. If kids are going to hand off their tablet or something else to a parent, or just go and sit in the living room where there's other people around, you can talk with them about moving to a quieter place and about getting a more quiet environment for you to be able to talk about your treatment goals with them. But this is where some of those communications with parents are really, really important, about being able to provide that structure where you're not able to do that as much on your own if you were meeting in a physical space.
Okay. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and get a little bit more specific. So I have two questions, one from Edna Arbitman and Naila Qureshi, about recommendations for kids with ADHD or ADD symptoms. What would you suggest for kids on that, like that?
A lot of this is going to be super specific to each and every client, because from one end, it's the hyperactive kids who are bouncing all over the room and all over the house, taking really frequent breaks from talking about the serious stuff to being able to engage with something in their room. All right, let's spend 3 minutes really focusing on this, and then let's spend 3 minutes doing something that's just totally you showing me your coin collection, or showing me, if I have a kid with a basketball hoop in his room, why don't you go and do a slam dunk for me, and I'll cheer for him on this end. But really breaking up the sessions into really small chunks helps to keep kids coming back and keeping them engaged. Some of the more inattentive types that are coming up, it's making sure that they have new and novel things to keep coming back to you on. And so that might be some of the engagement that you're looking at bringing in on your end in much the same way. And this is where playing the games like I Spy, all right, now it's time for me to go move something. Can you find it? Or doing a game like Simon Says, that you can interject fun with some of your therapeutic work as well, being able to say, all right, Simon Says, let's talk about something great that happened this week, that helps to shift towards those positive thoughts. Simon Says, do 5 jumping jacks. So of a lot of different ways of being able to break up that session into really, really small digestible chunks.
This is reminding me of, especially for like longtime therapists, this is like your first session with a child client way back in practicum. And
Yes.
You just might have to plan out so much more. You can't be on cruise control in telehealth with kids. You have to have lots of options, pivot fast, have ideas, and it doesn't need to be high tech. It could be pull out some crayons and color.
And it doesn't have to be high tech. The one thing with kids that you really have to do, even more so than in the physical office space, is you have to be exciting, because that demonstration of a lot more enthusiasm in your voice, it's exhausting sometimes doing session after session with kids online. And this is beyond just kind of the Zoom gloom that we all feel in doing a lot of telehealth sessions right now, but being really exciting, really overemphasizing a lot of the verbal and visual cues, the nonverbal cues, so that way the kids know that you're engaged with them and they've got your attention.
If you can't tell, I'm a former child therapist myself. So
Yes.
I can't imagine doing this right now. So kudos to all of you therapists doing this right now. You're helping so many kids and families. I have tremendous respect for the work you're doing. So Margarita asks, what is the best age range to work with kids on telehealth? And I'm going to frame it slightly differently. Is there a range where it's not really appropriate, either chronological or developmental?
So there's always the concerns about a ton of screen time, especially with really, really young kids. I have gone down to age 5 as far as kids in my practice that I've seen online. And this is where, especially with the younger kids, it's going to be case by case on who's
Right.
going to be most appropriate, who's going to be able to receive that therapeutic service in the best way possible. And this is part of where you also have to have a good assessment of, are you able to work with kids that young in this environment in an ongoing basis? And I don't think that there's a whole lot of people who are going to fault you if you decide after a few sessions that this is not the right way of delivering treatment. And it's probably the best ethical way of approaching it at that point is, hey, this isn't working in this environment. Let's either reevaluate if this is something that we can do or if this is even the right delivery of service here.
Or parent training rather than with the kid directly, or wait until things get better,
Right.
even though we don't know how long that will be. So there's a question that relates to this, and I want to follow up with it, which is, I had the question. It was a question. Oh, here. Amy Borst asked the question. I've had a parent ask about meeting their child in person in an open space area to maintain social distancing, like maybe backyard of the client's home or even your own home. What are your thoughts on this as an option?
I think that a lot of this is entirely up to you as the therapist. That and depending on the environment that you're working in, but just because people need mental health doesn't mean that they necessarily have to get it from you. And if there's other people who are, if you're uncomfortable with working in that kind of an environment, you have the freedom to be able to say, I'm not delivering services in that capacity right now. If it is something that you are comfortable with and it's something that you practice and you can do it well, or the agency that you're at allows for, or your supervisor allows you to do it, go ahead and make it work. That anything that can be beneficial to kids that's done in a good clinical and legal and ethical way, I'm all for.
Okay, we got another question. As an art therapist and an LMFT, is it appropriate to drop art supplies off to kid clients with parent permission at their residence?
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that I've seen is this has worked tremendously well with a couple of my colleagues who've done this. And what they have found is that sometimes those materials become things that you come back to session after session.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you can be entirely structured to set that up and the kids don't even want to touch them. So being super flexible about, even if you do deliver it, but I see this as another wonderful opportunity of creating something new and novel for kids to engage in, especially if the parents can hold off until the therapy session starts. This is going to be your time with your therapist to whatever comes out of the mystery bag that allows for that to be an engaging topic that does help keep some of that interest up.
Or you could even mail it and have the parent wait until the therapy session to say, okay, open your mail with your therapist in the session.
And depending on the type of setup that you might have, it's also entirely possible for you to create these kinds of packets or kits and have people come and pick them up appropriately from your office, if that's another way of engaging with them, and just making sure that you schedule out for privacy concerns of not having families cross each other's paths in your office.
And then also, obviously, you could potentially email this or have it on your website if they, those are other options as well. We're limited only by the bounds of our imagination.
Exactly. And being able to email stuff, out to parents, or, if the kid's a little bit older, being able to email them directly. A lot of kids like that responsibility of feeling engaged with some of the content that you might be delivering. And depending on the nature of what you're working with, the ability to screen share from either end of your communication, being able to engage with some of the worksheets that you might come across online. I do see a question from Brooke Belton Powell about good websites for readings or games that teach coping skills. I've shared with CAMFT quite a few different websites and stuff that I use that you can be able to engage with, and I'm sure that you guys will send that list out to.
We'll be posting that in the next few minutes, as well as we'll send it out in our email to everyone who signed up. So it's 12:30. We're gonna go an extra 5 to 6 minutes, so we get 30 minutes of content. So if you have to leave, feel free. Please do the survey that you might get at the end. But we're gonna go for another 5 minutes and get some more stuff. I want to ask, I'm going to go off the Q&A for a second and ask, what are the positives that you've seen that you didn't anticipate from telehealth?
So I have seen some of the kids in my office who were doing okay in therapy, who are doing so much better online, either because it's a way that they are more used to communicating with their friends. It's an environment that they used to, calm down, to relax on the weekends, but also especially for those kids who don't want to come into therapy, that need to be, kind of drug into the car and brought to the office where it's fight after fight. I've seen some of the more tremendous successes with those kinds of kids because it's removing 3 or 4 arguments in the half hour to an hour before they get to my office. And so they're in a much better position when they actually get to me, and they're able to take in a lot of the interventions that we're doing a lot easier just because they have more energy and they haven't spent their last hour fighting.
I'm wondering if also there is an aspect that digital is slightly less emotionally intense.
Exactly.
And so you're not in the presence of the adult therapist,
And not needing to take care of somebody else's feelings. If you are talking about something difficult, you're not picking up necessarily on somebody's verbal or nonverbal cues as much. That there's a lot more freedom to just be able to talk and be able to start to piece together some of that information that they might be struggling with in between your sessions.
Okay. Daria asks, this might be outside of the scope for today, but what do we do if we're looking to reopen for in-person child work? What are things we have to consider? Safe ways, for example, to sanitize materials between clients. The thought of that exhausts me so much that's part of the thing I would think about staying in telehealth for a while. But tell me your thoughts.
So I'm personally planning on staying in telehealth for quite a while, and CAMFT has a resource page on considerations amongst coming back into the office. I think the APA's list is like 42 pages long as far as some of the considerations that you need to have. But as far as cleaning stuff goes, you're going to need more time in between your sessions to be able to clean any high contact surfaces. This includes your games. You're also, anything that's going to be kind of that porous type material. You can't use that with client after client. And so that stuff's not going to be in your office under, keeping everything clean. So if you're not being able to plan, back-to-back clients, that you're going to need to give yourself maybe 30 minutes rather than 10 minutes to use all of the CDC and World Health Organization appropriate cleaners to keep things clean. These are some of the considerations that you're going to want just from the public health end of things. And that's also, depending on the nature of your specific environment, also doing therapy with masks right now, especially with kids. They're going to be fiddling with things. I have a couple of kids at my house. My kids are both under the age of 10. They might do a half an hour with the mask on a good day, but still being able to fiddle around with things is, just increasing that opportunity for exposure that you're really going to want to take a lot of those good protocols listed by CAMFT here.
Okay, I'm going to go to one last question from Brian Hamilton. Are there any HIPAA concerns we should take into consideration when using online games with clients? And I'm going to prompt you with especially ones you have to connect with.
So I am not an attorney. CAMFT has plenty of great attorneys to get really specific on these kinds of things. Don't communicate any protected health information in those third-party platforms. That, as far as the world concerns, and I'm open to being corrected by any of the CAMFT attorneys on this, but if you create a totally generic profile out there and you're not able to be in a platform where it's seeing friends of friends or anything like that, you're probably okay in being able to join into somebody else's area, be able to visit their island in Animal Crossing, be able to visit their Minecraft server, as long as you're keeping the communication of what you're doing in sessions in a HIPAA compliant platform. And there's plenty of those out there, but a lot of times you are going to be running dual tabs or dual platforms in order to be able to play with them in one area, but do all of your communications in the other.
Right. Okay, so it's 12:35, so I'm going to start wrapping up. Thank you, everyone, for coming to this webinar. This is the last of our Lunch and Learns, but we were going to have some more webinars. Don't you worry, we're going to have some more, and I'm looking forward to that great content. As MFTs, your work is critical at this time, especially working with kids. So I want to personally thank each of you for the hard work you're doing with your communities right now. I'm sorry we couldn't answer everyone's question. We'll do our best to answer questions offline. If you have a question about legal, ethical, or licensure issues, call CAMFT. Go to our COVID-19 resources page on the CAMFT website. Thank you once again to Geico, CPH, and Simple Practice for co-sponsoring the Lunch and Learn series. Kurt mentioned Simple Practice. If you join Simple Practice through CAMFT, you'll get 2 free months instead of the regular 1 free month. So reminder to go through the CAMFT website to get to Simple Practice. When this webinar concludes, please fill out a quick 2-question survey that'll open up in a new browser and will give you an opportunity to earn a 2-hour CE from CAMFT. So once again, thank you, Kurt. Thank you, everyone. Keep doing great work with kids because our communities need it, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.